Hey guys, so let's run through metabolic adaptation. So in the last video, we went through nutrition for fat loss. We detailed the individual macronutrients. We talked about calories and we talked about setting up a diet so that we protect muscle tissue whilst trying to maximize fat loss. So in today's video, I'm going to explain to you why diets stop working, why people rebound and end up regaining weight after they've lost it, and then ultimately what we can do about it to prevent that from happening to you. You see, every time that we're successful at losing weight and losing body fat, and I kind of mentioned it in the nutrition for fat loss video, we set off a cascade of adaptations that are promoted by the hypothalamus in the brain. Now, the hypothalamus in your brain kind of acts as a supercomputer for your body. It's regulating everything from energy levels to stored energy, to organ functioning, and its primary job is to make sure that we have what we need in order to survive. Now, naturally, when we're dieting, when we're losing weight, we're changing the status quo. We're in fact asking the body to do something that it's not now really wanting us to do. And the reason why it's not wanting us to lose weight and body fat is because when we're a certain weight and body fat for a long enough period of time, the hypothalamus creates something called a set point. And this is a set point where it's pretty much comfortable to keep your body fat and body weight levels at. Now, for most people in their adult life, if they haven't gone through the yo-yo dieting cycle, they'll typically stay at a certain weight and a certain body shape without too much effort. So the exercise that they're doing and the diet that they're following, it's not really doing anything negative to their body shape. It's not doing anything really positive to their body shape. In short, we've reached what's called maintenance. Now, the homeostatic point that's set by the hypothalamus is this maintenance level. So the higher we're driving up body fat, the higher we're driving up body weight, and staying there, the level is set. And ultimately, any change from that level is going to be detrimental to our survival. So let's think about what a calorie deficit truly is. What we're doing is we're taking energy away from the body. We're saying to the body, I want you to utilize what you have in reserve. In that very statement, we're going against what the hypothalamus wants the body to do. Now, in the short term, when we start following a calorie deficit and when we start our diets, we still actually have enough body fat, we have a lot of calories in reserve, so the hypothalamus is prepared to allow us to actually start breaking down what we have stored. But the bad news is that when we start breaking down what we've got stored, and we're going to lose muscle glycogen, we're also going to lose liver glycogen, we're also going to lose body fat, visceral fat, intramuscular triglyceride. These are the fuel sources that we're going to start pulling from. When we start pulling from these fuel sources, body fat in itself, as that's reducing, actually secretes less of a hormone called leptin. Now, leptin is a neurochemical messenger for the hypothalamus in the brain. Now, as it pertains to body fat, this is essentially the phone call that's being made from the body to the brain to say, this is what we have. Now, because it's secreted exclusively by fat cells, and we're now losing what's stored in those fat cells, so the body fat itself, we're losing the stored calories, there's now less leptin available. Now, the interesting thing about leptin is within 2 weeks of following a diet, a calorie deficit, leptin levels already start to reduce. So it's not just sensitive, or the reductions in and the adaptations in the hypothalamus and its response to a diet are not just sensitive to leptin, it's also sensitive to calories. So as leptin levels are reducing, the hypothalamus realizes that the phone call isn't being made for it to find out what's happening in terms of body fat, storage, and energy that we have in reserve. So the deeper we get into the diet, the hypothalamus starts making changes to our metabolic output so that we burn less calories. Your resting metabolic rate, your active metabolic rate, your thermic effect of food, so the amount of calories that you burn during digestion, and your exercise activity, metabolic output, all reduce. Your non-exercise active thermogenesis, which is daily movement, also known as your 10,000 steps, the amount of calories that we're prepared to burn from that also reduces. What the body tries to do is it tries to become more efficient at doing the same activity and the same output on less fuel. So it tries to stretch that fuel out for longer so that we're not breaking down more body fat. And it makes perfect sense. It's a survivalistic mechanism. But not only that, it starts to reduce some of the other things that are happening in your body. So it actually starts to downgrade the levels of anabolic hormones. So testosterone, growth hormone, insulin growth-like factor. Some of the hormones that we're going to have in response to training that are going to be beneficial for us to change our body and beneficial for us to improve nutrient partitioning. So whether we're actually going to get stuff, so nutrients into cells or into muscle cells or into fat cells, so that nutrient partitioning starts to become altered. These hormones now are downgraded. The other hormone that's downgraded is your thyroid hormone, the master regulator of the metabolism. This is now downgraded, again, in response to a calorie deficit, to you losing weight and body fat. And the deeper we go into a diet, the more weight and body fat that you're losing, the more these processes are being downgraded. But not just that. There are a few other things that the hypothalamus is also starting to do. It's actually starting to upregulate these stress hormones that essentially in the initial phase of a diet would help us liberate what we've got stored because it was an acute response to being in a diet and an acute response to training, to now leading to chronic elevations of stress hormones because the diet in itself is inherently stressful for the body. These stress hormones then can affect things like sleep. So obviously, if you've ever done something like a photo shoot or you've stepped on stage, this is where, as you get deeper and deeper into that prep, closer and closer to photo shoot day or stage day, that things start to change and it starts to become a real struggle. The second thing that is also upgraded is the hormonal cascade for hunger hormones. So the gut, the digestive system, is now being asked to produce more hunger hormones to send a signal up to command centers in your brain to try and get you to eat. So again, some of the behavioral things behind dieting and behind changing your body shape are actually driven by your own biochemistry. So when we're thinking about a diet, again, if you've been there yourself, the deeper and deeper you get into that diet, the lower and lower you take those calories, the higher and higher you take that output, the hungrier you get, the more tired you get, the moodier you get, the less you're likely to want to train. All these things make perfect sense in relation to some of the adaptations that's happening in response to the very fact that you're losing weight and body fat. So if we know, for example, that we're going to see this negative outcome eventually, and remembering that all training programs and all nutritional plans follow a bell-shaped curve where we start off, we're getting the adaptations, we hit maximal output, and then we start to get drop-off, we should plan for this. We should be aware of this well in advance. Now, the beauty of it is we're going to be, because ultimately we're going to set up a dieting phase where we're going to maximize the amount of body fat that we can lose, followed by a reverse diet. So what a reverse diet is, and this is what they don't tell you at slimming clubs, personal trainers don't talk about this, nutritionists don't talk about this, and ultimately this means that people that are going down this route of yo-yo dieting, losing the weight, regaining the weight, they aren't aware that this is a driving process behind their inability to keep that weight and body fat off. So this reverse diet, what it allows us to do is to, right at the point where we've maximally got the most out of that fat loss phase, we can start slowly but surely adding calories back in. And we're going to add calories back in at a small level so that we start providing nutrients back to the system so that the hypothalamus can now receive the response that more calories are available, and we're going to purposely regain a little bit of weight and body fat. We have to do this. The reason why we have to regain some weight and body fat, but not right back to where we started, we're looking to roughly gain maybe 10% of what we've lost. The reason why we need to do that is because as we're regaining some of that body fat back, we're re-raising leptin levels. Remember that lower leptin levels then start or keep the metabolic adaptations that mean that ultimately we're going to downgrade all the stuff that we're now looking to upgrade. So as we start slowly but surely adding calories back in, this is now a perfect time for us to change our training style completely and look to try and gain some muscle tissue as we're exiting the diet. So ultimately we can now change up the style of training to complement the fact that we're going to have more calories available, provided that we've got access to the equipment to be able to do that. Because as this video may be going out to home training clients as well, you might be working off completely different systems and body weight might be the only thing that you have access to. This is going to be different for yourself. Your options are more limited than what they would be than when working with a client with either a gym facility or some home equipment. And the reason for that is purely that we're able to switch the styles of training to maximize output at a muscle cell level that's going to be more local based than systemic based as it is when we're working whole body programs and maybe upper lower splits and things like that. So as we're now adding those calories back in, we start to re-raise testosterone growth hormone response to training, the anabolic cascade. We start to re-raise thyroid hormone. We start to pick up all that metabolic output slowly but surely again. So you start to feel less tired, you start to feel less hungry, your moods dissipate. And again, when I'm talking about these negative adaptations, I'm talking about these as if they're happening at the most extreme level. Having done photo shoots myself, I've experienced that, but for someone who's just losing weight and body fat, you might not experience that at all, depending on how much you've got to lose. If you're taking body fat down to sub 10% body fat, which is what we do with some of our clients and also with ourselves, then you're definitely going to experience some of these negative adaptations that are perfectly normal. So we will now exit the diet. The reverse diet has to be at least 2/3 the length of the diet phase. So we're doing it properly. We aren't simply ending that diet, chucking a load of calories back in, and then restoring as much body fat as possible, or restoring as much weight as possible, regaining that weight. And the reason why you can gain it faster is because as we've obviously emptied those fat cells, remember the hypothalamus actually wants that body fat back, we start changing nutrient partitioning so that whenever more calories are available, we can forget about muscle cells for a little while and we can drive those extra calories into fat cells. Bearing in mind that we've just dieted, we've taken your body weight down, we've taken your body fat down, we've actually taken your metabolism down. So your maintenance level of calories compared to what it would be on a calorie calculator is not the same. Your body will have regulated essentially your metabolic output to the degree that, let's say, a calorie calculator says your maintenance calories need to be 2,500, you might be sitting at 1,300, depending on how many calories you've dieted down to and how hard you've trained and for how long. So this is why we have to reverse diet based off the numbers of your tailored nutritional plan and not what a calorie calculator might tell you need to be following. Because if we ended the diet, we chuck a load of calories back in, you're simply going to fill those fat stores back up. And that's it. So if we're able to maintain the fat loss phase, we're able to maintain the reverse diet phase, we're then going to take that reverse diet up to a level where we could now pick one of three options. Those three options are going to be, we could just maintain our new weight, our new body shape, our new body fat level, as long as output and intake is matched. We could actually now start to try and go into more of a muscle building phase. So we could start raising calories again, start going down different routes of training where the focus is less on body fat. We're trying to maintain body fat levels at the level that we got to, but now we're looking to drive building muscle tissue, which is another completely different focus and process altogether. Or, and this is how I've taken my most successful client with this method, I took a client from a size 30 down to a size 10 by doing this. Or we could actually set up another fat loss phase where we'll go back through the process again. We'll go through another diet, reverse diet. And again, this is how we'll have taken people that might have been overweight and got them abs for the first time in their adult life. It's a rinse and repeat of an understanding of how your body is responding to your nutritional profile, to your diet, and then ultimately to your training stimulus and everything that goes with your lifestyle too. So there we go, guys. Any questions on that, feel free to ask me. I know this is a lot of information to take in one video, so feel free to obviously repeat the video again. But if we understand how the human body works, there's just no reason for you to ever panic when it comes to diets, to ever follow some quick fix diet that ultimately is going to go against all the things that we just talked about, that might work in the short term but make it worse in the long term. There's just no need for you to be in a position where you're not knowing what you're doing anymore when it comes to diet and training. All right, guys, I'll see you again soon.